August 1st, 2020. Four of us Cedar Valley Air Force pilots headed for Cache Valley. We took off from the old abandoned runway at Logan Cache Airport and headed out towards the west and north and saw some fantastic scenery. I took off a little earlier than the others because they were still setting up down there, so I headed out and did a little exploratory flight of my own. And this is what I found. I think I'm discovering that flying a powered parachute is even more fun than flying a regular airplane. In one of these things, it's just you and the entire world and sky all around you with nothing. No windscreen, no windows, no walls, no doors, nothing. Just the air. You get to experience the entire sensory perceptions of everything out there. The fresh smell of the morning, of the corn growing down below, of alfalfa, the gentle scent of water below, and out over a place like Cache Valley in dairy country, the odor of moo cow. Yes, I know, Utah is a desert, but somehow or another Cache Valley just doesn't seem like desert country. This is where the Bear River and Little Bear Rivers come together. The valley is old and flat, and geologic structure out here keeps the rivers from being able to cut any deeper. And because they can't cut deeper, they expend their energy by meandering back and forth, cutting laterally across the landscape. In some places, it produces an oxbow meander like this one here. You see how the river swings back and forth? It reminded early geologists of the wooden oxbows that were put over the necks of oxen to pull wagons. And so that's how the oxbow meander got its name. And this is a fine example of one below us here. It was still early in the morning, so the sun was low, and my shadow was cast way out there across that alfalfa field. I'd been out for a while, so I swung around and began to head back towards the airport to see if I could pick up the other guys as they were ready to take off and go. It was one of the best flying mornings I think I've ever experienced. It was just the right temperature in the low to mid 70 degrees range. The air was absolutely smooth. There were no thermal activities. It was just a good, gentle morning of flying. And the landscape below, it looked like some kind of artistic palette of greens and golds and blue. Ah, what a morning it was. The water table under Cache Valley must be almost at the surface. There were a few places out there where I saw cows splashing around. Their entire pastures looked like they were swamps. At least later in the day, when the temperature got up around 100, those cows were probably about as comfortable as most humans were. They had their own, well, not air conditioning, but water conditioning. This is looking south. The Wellsville Mountains are showing up there on the right, and then the Logan Mountains on the left. At this point in the flight, we were making a ground speed of 35 miles an hour. Had a little bit of a tailwind here. Not much, but a little. Grain field down below to the right there, just about ready to harvest. The lines of sprinklers down there doing their duty. I'm not sure what the story was with this cornfield down here. Big bare spaces in the middle of the cornfield. Looked almost like some kind of skin disease. And finally back to Logan Cache Airport. The big X on the end of the runway indicates that that runway is abandoned, no longer used. But the airport management allows us to come out there and use this section as our own little private airport. So I swung around, and the other guys were still puttering around down there. Keith Haggard has had his rig laid out on the ground, but they were just standing there talking. Actually, it turned out they were probably doing the pre-flight briefing that I missed out on, and so I didn't know about a radio frequency change, and I wasn't able to chatter back and forth with them as we were flying later in the morning. Oh well. Anyway, tune in again for the next part of this adventure over Cache Valley. We'll see you a little later, and keep smiling, whatever you do.